Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we're continuing with our weekly series of shirim on the Torah of recovery with the light revealed and trying to illuminate the path of recovery and stuckness and the movement from smallness into greatness in our lives through the lens of the Torah itself, as well as to search within the Torah itself for those therapeutic tools, those therapeutic promises, those pathways towards the easement of the burden of this worldliness within the Torah itself. So we're unifying the world of Torah with recovery and recovery with the Torah. In Parshas Chukas, what we encounter is one of the most fundamental truths that the entire world will come to know and that the entire world knows, but there's a certain defense system that protects people from being aware of this idea. We spend an immense amount of time trying to cover over this, to hide this reality. And it happens to be that it's specifically the recovery community, those who have been forced into the acknowledgement of this place, that are the true bearers of this secret. And so while the rest of the world is afraid of this secret, and while the rest of the world is continuously in a process of trying to cover over or pretend that this secret doesn't exist, it's specifically those who have fallen apart only to learn the secret of putting themselves back together. It's only there that this secret is truly revealed for all to see. And the simplicity of the secret is that we don't know anything, that we don't know anything at the end of the day. An ignorance that rests at the core of all things, an unknowing, a not knowing, an inability to know. In this context, knowledge doesn't simply mean the integration of a piece of information to my memory so that I can repeat it. That's available for all. But knowledge in terms of grasp, knowledge in terms of a real understanding that puts me in the position that I have power over the thing that I'm contemplating. Knowledge, the integration of the chaotic terms of reality into the organized categories of our minds and our internal experiences, is an attempt to domesticate the brute force of the outside nature of things. Now, this brute force can be seen in some violent, external, kind of land-oriented way of some pagan notion, or the brute force of reality can simply be what we know to be true. It's the air that breathes through all structure. It's the simple fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing that exists. And Memela, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only thing that exists, Hashem is the only thing that exists. So everything that we build and everything that we attempt to create is ultimately cut through with nothingness. And it's revealed to be suspended upon nothingness. It doesn't have to be a fear of the unknown that comes from that kind of forest nighttime vision of wild animals, etc., that make me terrified about what I don't know. But there's a more beneficial, silent type of not knowing, a fear of not knowing, which forces me to realize that in the end of the day, all of the systems of control, all of the rationalizations and the intellectualizations and the categorizations that I apply to reality itself, in the end of the day, they slip through my hands because they don't perform their desired task, which is giving me a sense of control. One way or the other, a person will come to the recognition that my knowledge, my attempt to know with certainty the nature of this thing or that thing, this person or that person, this event or that event, this concept or that concept, where I'll only rest once I can lay claim to full knowledge, a full grasp, a full ownership, a full possession, a full power. Only then will I be able to say that I know. A person is going to be forced to come to the realization that in the end of the day, it's impossible to know. I have no control over anything. I'm not powerful over anything other than the alignment of my mind, heart, and body to the scenarios that I find myself in. And in that not knowing, which the whole world is so afraid of admitting to, because knowledge is power and power is stability, and stability is the release from the anxiety of the uncertainty of things, and it frees me from the need to question everything, to realize that the entirety of the world is spread out upon the flimsiness of water, and to realize that Tola Eretz al Blima, to realize what powerlessness truly means, which means that I am not in control. I am not the one who is meant to be in control of things in this world. My entire attempt, my failed attempt at trying to rein in on my control in this world is built upon a faulty notion of what my purpose in this world is. If my assumption is that my role in this world is to possess and to domesticate the chaos of the outside so that I can lay claim to a certainty of the mind without questions or deviation, and I can see exactly how life is going to end up for me in each and every moment to the very end, so then I'm utilizing the wrong tool set and I'm in the wrong place to do that. This world is not something that can be domesticated. This world is not something that can be grasped by the limitations of the human mind. Why? Because the externality of the world is reflective of the infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And just as the infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is ungraspable to the human being, so too the even lowest manifestation of that, which is the mahus, that which I encounter in this world, in the end of the day, what do I actually know? What do I actually come to know? The Zohar HaKadosh says you're not allowed to ask questions. You're not allowed to ask questions about things that exist above those lofty levels where a person has to come to terms with their ignorance. But the Zohar Kadosh also says, but in the end of the day, even those things that we have a sense of control over, also what do we know there? We don't have the essence of anything. We can't know a thing in and of itself ever. All ounces of grasp and awareness are built upon a secondary state of human experience, which is by definition a state of translation within the mind. So I'm always one step away from the thing in itself, and the essence exceeds my grasp at every moment. And when a person realizes this, when a person finally comes to terms with the fact that I don't know and that I'm not in control, and that I'm not the one who's going to dictate how things go. I am the one who is capable of preparing in accordance with my preparation and the availability of preparation in my mind. But when it comes to my actual encounter with reality, I'm not the one in control. And in that place, the desire for knowledge, the desire for knowing, the desire for grasp, the desire for control, the desire for certainty, the desire to alleviate the self of all of the not knowing, which gives birth to this natural, all too human state of anxiety, which says, I don't know, but I assume that it will be unmanageable. There's a certain release that a person encounters when they realize that, wait a second, I'm not supposed to be able to know. Knowledge is not what I think it is. Knowledge is not the seizure of power. Knowledge is a state of embodiment. It's a state of drawing down something from above me into the inner recesses of who I am so that I can integrate it fully into my life and now reveal that I can now look outside from myself out onto the world with this newfound piece of insight. That's das, that's yediyah. But yediyah doesn't mean control. Yediyah means, like we were speaking about yesterday, it means showing up, it means appearing, it means being connected and attuned and here right now with my das, with my intentionality and my attention. That's what knowledge is. It's a state of being, not a process of information processing. And if we live our lives thinking that if I have enough information, then I'll really know and I'll have a yediyah and I'll be able to lay claim to the chaos of reality and I'll know exactly what's going to be, well, I'll always be frustrated in my attempt. Because in the end of the day, tachlis hayediyah shalei neda, the apex of wisdom, is coming to the place that in the end of the day, Ribbon Shloim, I don't know. I don't know. Wisdom, the attempt at knowledge, the attempt at knowing, all of those are fundamentally significant to each and every moment of our lives. We must walk through life as individuals who know, because knowledge is how I move through my day-to-day. It's how I know what to do, and it's how I have the confidence strong enough to be able to push forward in my own most subjective process in this world. But at the core of my knowing, at the core of everything that I know, and every attempt of power that I have in this world, and every expression of myself, there is an air, there is a whisper, there is a revelation at the core of it that at the end of the day, I don't know. Tachlis hayediyah shalom neda. I don't know. I don't know. The reason so many people are terrified of revealing that they don't know is because they still assume that there is a sturdy ground upon which they stand and which their lives are built. And kol zman, as long as a person feels that their lives are built upon something stable, so then they're going to do everything that they can to protect the stability that gives their life the functionality that they assume it is. And that stability is the knowns. It's what I know in this world. It's what I've domesticated. It's where I know with certainty what's going to be, and I don't question it whatsoever. Or the ideas that I don't question whatsoever, or the narratives that I don't question whatsoever. And very often that's motivated by a fear that if I begin to question them, then I'll lose the stability and the sturdiness of my conceived notions. And then what's going to be? I'm going to be drowning in the water. And there's a terror of not knowing, because not knowing implies that I have to relinquish my grasp of power in this world. And that's exposing myself to the reality that I don't know anything at all. And I'm not in control of anything at all other than my mind. But when a person falls into that place by hook or by crook, they're forced to come to a place of not knowing, because in the end of the day, I thought I would gain wisdom, I thought I would gain understanding, as Shlomo Melech says, but it turns out that it's distant from me. What that means is that in the quest towards knowledge, in the quest towards knowing, In every attempt to domesticate reality, I still have to remember that he rechoika mimeni. I don't know. I don't know. And I enable myself to relinquish control. I enable myself to realize that, wait a second, the sturdy ground that I thought I lived upon a moment before, Avada, it's sturdy, but it's not sturdy in the way that I assumed it was sturdy. I assumed it was sturdy because I knew about it and I know how I got there and I know the tools that I need to do in order to get there and I know the effort and the koichi ve'otzim yadi and the work of my own hands that brought me to that place. And that's what I thought my certainty was built upon and my sturdiness was built upon. It turns out that that was never the source of my sturdiness. That was all my attempt, my acting to bring about the true source of sturdiness, which is the fact that toila eretz al blima, that all that exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and emuna in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is a sense of being which far exceeds the capacity of knowledge. That's where my sturdiness comes from. Me'ayin yavo Ezri. My stability comes from nothingness. I all along thought it was coming from something. I all along thought it was built upon the work of my own hands and my power that has brought me here. And that's what enabled me to maintain my functionality because I fully lean into what has become stable in my life. But when a person is forced to acknowledge the limitations of their grasp, and that is revealed very quickly to a person any moment they pay attention to anything in their lives, when I relinquish that sense of koicha v'otzim yadi and I realize that, wait a second, I cannot rely on myself because my sturdiness is unstable because I'm nothing. I'm nothing. There, but for the grace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, am I functioning in this moment on any level whatsoever. The breath of in and out is dependent upon the rachamim ravim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends down to each person at every moment. Torah eletz al b'lima. It has nothing to do with us. We're all shluchim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this particular moment, and it's an avodah matana. It's not based on something that we've done. And memela, when I take the air out of all of that seriousness that I felt has brought me to this point and my stability, and I realize that, oh my gosh, it's not nearly as stable as I thought it was. Suddenly, the real stability emerges, and that stability is that comes about when I realize the instability of myself, when I realize that human effort to be stable in the instability of the infinite lights of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's expression in this world, the oiris, the tohu, b'kelim, the tikkun, the lights of chaos within the vessels of rectification, the infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light that is revealed at every moment that a person chooses to draw it down, that shatters any notion of the stable contours of functionality. And it reveals that the true source of my stability has always been HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ein oid milvado. Amarti achakme. I thought I had power. I thought I knew. V'hi rechoika mimeni, and it's distant from me. And in that place of distance, like we spoke about last week by Parshas Korach, we come to reveal that, oh my goodness, distance is also a way of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the distance itself, Amarti achakme v'hi rechoika mimeni. I thought I knew, but it's specifically within the revelation that I don't know. When I can relinquish control, that's where I gain comfort. Because again, the recognition of not knowing, the recognition of the inherent ignorance at the core of every attempt at human knowledge and power and the seizure and possession of all things, it's not there to negate the effort towards knowledge. We have to, with every ounce of our expression in life, do what we can to grow in our ability to function and grasp what this world is, and to know and to learn and to carry forward and to build and to work with the confidence of someone who knows that the ground is going to be there under their feet the next point that they put their feet down. But at the core of that place is the Toila Eretz al Blima, is the secret that all of the stability in my life is built upon my recognition of the inherent instability of all things, other than the true place of all things, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At that heart of all things, there's a bittul muchletas, there's an absolute nullification of any attempt to grasp or seize any power whatsoever, because just HaKadosh Baruch Hu is powerful. And kulam b'chachma asita. Then I can try with every ounce of my effort to know. The goal of coming to terms with the fact that I don't know anything is not to deny the value of trying to know everything. What it does is it reveals the radical secret of, in every attempt at knowledge, I go through the entire process of knowing, information collection, development of that information, the formation of that information in my mind, the attempt to live in accordance with that information, the inwards expression of that information, every attempt at knowing everything to the deepest level imaginable. As Rabbi Nachman teaches us immediately, that each and every person must seek out the wisdom, the logos within each and everything. That's our task, to uncover the chachma in each and everything. But at its core, there's a secret of the hirechoika mimeni. It's far from me. It's emuna. It's because of you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so this secret of not knowing doesn't mean that my life is going to turn into a pile of ashes because now I have nowhere to turn and I have nothing to do. Adarabah ipcha mistabra, it will allow me to move forward in the actions of my life with more bittul. I try and know, but every ounce of trying to know is simply another revelation that I don't know. And the not knowing is no longer the negation of knowledge, but rather it's the very apex of knowledge, as Rabbi Nachman brings down from the Kadmoinim and really, really brings down into consciousness on every level. He screams it so loud, it reverberates throughout every aspect of history. That tachlis hayadiyah shalei neda, that the apex of wisdom is that one come to a place of not knowing, which is the very same svara as the secret of Ein Shem Yesh B'Olam Klal. Because if I'm operating in accordance to my knowledge, then there's a vadi yesh, because in my mind, everything can lead to yesh. It's only when I relinquish the control of my mind and I realize Amarti Achakmeh v'hi rechoika mimeni, v'hi rechoika mimeni. It's far from me, I don't know. Only then can I realize, I think I have yesh, I don't have yesh, Ein Shem Yesh B'Olam Klal. There's a wisdom of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that far exceeds any capacity of grasping it in human intellectual grasp. The only way to grasp it is by way of coming to terms with the fact that I can't grasp it. And in that not knowing, in that secret of powerlessness, it's not the cessation of activity. Adarabba, it's the opposite. It is the place where activity takes on its true power. I realize I know absolutely nothing. All I can do is the next right thing. All I can do is that thing that rests in front of me right now. And so the awareness that we all know of, which is that I don't know, I have to let go and let God. I don't know in the end of the day, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I can try and know. I can try with every aspect of knowledge, as the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh teaches us, to know. And ultimately to know at the end of each attempt at knowledge that, I finally come to the place that I know that I don't know. As the tzaddikim said that when they were learning Panimius HaTorah, they wouldn't stand up until it was fundamentally clear to them that they didn't know. Again, this is not a game of pretending that I'm ignorant, even though I know I'm smart. The depth of smart, the depth of intelligence is the fact that at the core of all information and knowledge that I have, there's a contingency, there's a hidden place of that secret that, oh my God, it's only because HaKadosh Baruch Hu has decided that there's a thing called the Torah that is a light that illuminates into the world, that I have some element of graspability, but not because I know anything to be true whatsoever. HaKadosh Baruch Hu could shift every law and fabric of awareness in a moment's time, prior to a moment. Nothing that I know is absolute. Nothing that I know is built upon anything absolute. The Torah, the letters of the Torah, the Aleph base is absolute. The Aleph base is absolute, and every permutation of the Aleph base, especially as it's revealed in the Torah, that's absolute. But it's absolute because it leaves room for the knowledge of the contingency within it. Only because I acknowledge the contingency and the undecidability and the not knowing and the negative theology at the core of all attempts at grasping something, am I then able to descend down into those pockets of knowing and processing and power without falling into that trick of koich v'yatzam yadi, because I realize, Hashem, it's you all along. Every attempt of knowing is bringing me back to that place of knowing that I don't know. I didn't know, I don't know, and I won't know. It's a process of coming to terms with the apex of wisdom being that point of ignorance that opens up towards faith. And the way that this works in our lives, those Chukas HaTorah, this is the Chuk of the Torah, the secret of the Para Aduma, that impossible paradox of the impossibility of something pure causing impurity and something impure becoming pure through that it's specifically through the death of the para that life emerges, that tumas misa, that the impurity of death, the impurity of struggle, the impurity of the inherent limitation of being a human being is in and of itself transformed into the place of tahara, is in and of itself being transformed into the place of yediyah, that the not knowing itself is the very point at which true knowledge begins to emerge, this impossibility of the death of knowledge becoming the very emergence of knowledge, and specifically within powerlessness, encountering the emergence of the power that I have when I acknowledge my powerlessness, which is accepting a shlichus. This is the secret of the para aduma. And just to connect it to the light of Rabbeinu Haramchal in a profound historical and tragic instance, which Klal Yisrael are finding themselves always in the repetition of this history, in the repetition of the trauma of history, which is ultimately our job to work through it and not to fall prey into the repetition compulsion of being stuck in the same patterns, but adrabah ipchem estaber lechatchila ariber, to break on through to the other side and to not be nispala from the concealment that emerges, but rather to realize that this is an old story that is leading finally to the conclusion that we have all been anticipating and waiting for, Tekefum Yad Mamish. But the Rabbeinu Haramchal, who is the bookkeeper of history, so to speak, of the history of Kedusha in all of its various facets, so he writes a very interesting letter in Igros Haramchal, the letters of the Ramchal, in letter 86. In letter 86. And letter 86 is a response to his teacher who is questioning about, the state of affairs in the world from a Kabbalistic perspective, why things appear to be so degraded, why things appear to be so concealed. And the Ramchal responds to his Rebbe, he says, I've revealed already all of these things, and I got into trouble for it because people don't want to know the truth. People don't want to know that in truth that they don't know. People want to continue to play around in the realms of knowing. They want to take themselves seriously as if they know. I've already revealed the secret of not knowing. I've already revealed the secrets of Panemius, and I got in trouble for it. They burnt my books. They burnt my books as a result of it. Just as those in the process of recovery who wear this very clear sign of I don't know, one of the reasons that the stigmatization against those who live with the awareness of not knowing it, because it shines a mirror to those who are still stuck in the process of trying to know that they're not ready to look at yet. You tell a person who's in the process, a really thick process of knowledge and power, that ultimately, sorry, brother, there's no power whatsoever. They're going to look at you and say, no, you're the bad one. You get out of here. You're the one who's lying. Because ultimately, just like the prophets carried messages that Klal Yisrael were not ready to receive. And the Ramchal is saying, I can't talk about these things explicitly, you know that, but I'll speak about it from a historical context. And the Ramchal is responding to the historical reality that in 1730 there was a gezerah in Rome that the Talmud would be burnt, that Torah Sheba'al Peh would be burnt, that Sifrei Kedoshim would be burnt in a public space, Yimach Shemam v'Zichram. And so the Ramchal is being asked about this, and he responds to his Rebbe, with regards to what you asked me in terms of the decree that the books should be burnt in Rome, it's already known that I've removed myself from talking about these things in any revealed way. But because I only work for others and I'm not here for myself, I'm not going to conceal what I want to say. So what I want to say first and foremost, says the Ramchal, is that the reality of there being a decree upon Torah and knowledge itself, the question is, where does it emerge from? It's not why did the anti-Semite do this thing. It's where did this reality emerge from, because there's nothing that doesn't have its root source in supernal reality. Because this is the secret of the pasuk, Zos Chukas Torah. This is the chukah of the Torah. This is the foil in the attempt at knowing that reveals the inherent non-knowing of all of it. Because what's the chukah of the Torah? What's the para? The targum on that pasuk is da gezerah saraisa. This is the gezerah on Torah. This is the decree on Torah. And this decree on the Torah is the textual hint to the reality that in the future there would be times where Torah was destroyed, Torah was burnt, God forbid. And the secret of the matter, says the Ramchal, is literally the aspect of the para aduma. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence, the Shechina, our awareness of God in this world, realizes the dire nature of the situation, realizes the concealment, how terrified we are, and this is me paraphrasing, how terrified we are, or filling in my own understanding in context of what we're talking about, how terrified we are of not knowing. The Shechina sees that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees that we're dying because we think, oh my God, if I don't know, then I'm not going to survive. If I let go of control, I'm not going to survive. So the Shekhinah herself gives herself over to a state of sreifa in order to burn that judgment, that strong judgment that was resting upon Klal Yisrael. So the Shekhinah HaKadosha Kavyachol, the Talmud, the books themselves go into a process of being burnt for the sake of revealing to Klal Yisrael, revealing to the Jewish people that in truth they can still survive. In the context of how we're reading this or misreading it, it's the secret of, okay, the Torah is I need to know everything. I need to know everything in the world. But then a person comes to a place of thinking, oh my God, if I need to know everything in the world that I don't know anything, I'm not going to be able to survive. So we know that we don't know, but we're not ready to admit to the fact that we don't know. And the secret is that the Shekhinah HaKadosha decides, oh my gosh, they're buckling under the pressure of thinking that they have to know in order to be okay, and they're so anxious of not knowing. So I'm going to go down and descend to reveal to them that it's okay not to know, in order to alleviate this profound judgment that rests upon Klal Yisrael. And this is the secret of providing purity to those who find themselves in a state of impurity, that the only way that they can encounter purity is by way of this descent of the Torah itself going into a place of sreifa, the destruction of the desire for knowledge and living in the sense of not knowing. Amarti echakmeh v'hi rechoyka mimeni. When the Torah gets burnt, kavyachol, when there's a sreifa and a person realizes that I don't need to know everything at this moment, that's where the tahara comes from. Those who were defiled with the depth of impurity, which is the impurity of death, of being terrified in this world that if I don't know something, then I'm dead. But in the end of the day, it's the burning of the book, the revelation that at the end, it's not knowledge that is most important, but rather the revelation that I don't know anything at all. That's going to be the tikkun. But it's also going to be the tumah. It's also going to defile that which was pure, because knowledge in Torah is fundamental. And the burning of that is like a descent into darkness. And I no longer have the illumination of the mind and the insight of the mind that comes with knowledge. But nevertheless, this is how it happens. And there has to be an awakening from below, an awakening from below that recognizes that Rabbeinu Shalom, I need the medicine. I need the medicine that reminds me that I don't have to know. I don't have to know. I don't have to know. It's the secret of Zos Torah Sa'adam ki yamus ba'ohel. Zos Torah Sa'adam. I know everything. I'm trying to know everything. Amarti achakmeh. I want that control. I want to know. But then Adam ki yamus ba'ohel. But then the individual lets themselves let go of the attempt of knowing, and they enter into that place of yamus ba'ohel. Bahalu neira. The lashon of ohel is a language of an illumination of light. The secret of Leah, that secret of concealment, of not knowing anything whatsoever. Every attempt at knowing leads a person to that place of suspended attempts at the seizure of power, and to live within the soft comfort of faith that emerges and allows a person to be okay in this moment, in the way that I am right now, in the way that I grasp reality right now, in the all rightness of all things. And the Ramchal continues to describe in a profound, frightening way how these tikkunim go on and on. They go on, and Be'ezras Hashem, I'll share the letter. But the secret is coming to that place of not knowing, of owning the fact that in the end of the day, I don't know. But that's not because I'm stupid, and it's not because I'm not good enough, and it's not because I've messed up, but it's because ultimately the truest vessel towards uncovering the light of faith is the suspension of the desire for absolute knowledge and the transformation of the quest for knowledge to open itself up with the light of not taking oneself so seriously, and to draw laughter into knowledge, the milsa de b'dichusa that precedes all learning, which is the recognition that I don't know anything, I won't know anything, but I will try with every ounce of my fiber to know all that I can know, because every attempt at knowing leads me back to that singular place of Amarti Achakmeh v'hi rechoyken mimeni. It's far from me, Rabbeinu Shalom, and at the end of the day, I fall back in love with that simple tmimus faith that emerges after the attempt at knowledge. And then that faith gives way to trying to find more knowledge. And then I come back to a place of faith. Ad infinitum, there is no limit to the growth of one's development of their faith and their follow-up attempt to try and know more, and then to have more faith and know more. We're learning powerlessness every moment of our lives, and we're uncovering power from within powerlessness, only to come back to a higher place of powerlessness, which leads us back to a sense of power, ultimately revealing the true power of all things, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chavodo v'atzmo, who gives the power to the para aduma, who's the Yachid b'mitzias and the Yachid b'shlita, that contains all opposites within itself, and the radical secret of the para aduma, which is the secret of the profound revelations of La'asid Lavo, which will be zochet to Be'ezras Hashem in our days and in our inner lives in each and every moment.